I mean, I have a feeling I know a bit about how your brain works. If you are tuning into this deep dive, you're someone who genuinely loves to learn.
Right. You're ambitious.
Exactly. You're ambitious.
Yeah.
You likely have this rather impressive, maybe even slightly intimidating list of things you want to master. There are books piled on your nightstand, professional skills you're trying to pick up, and, some pretty significant life goals you're quietly mapping out in the background.
And that drive is an incredible engine to have. It really is.
It is. But let's take a step back and look at the reality of operating that engine day in and day out. Because having that much ambition and having access to all the complex productivity systems out there today.
Oh, the time blocking.
Yes, the time blocking, the habit trackers, the optimization apps, it can actually backfire completely. You sit down to make progress, and instead of executing a task, you find yourself just...
You freeze.
Right. Yeah. You end up paralyzed by the sheer volume of what you want to achieve and the wildly complicated systems you built to achieve it.
It's a paradox that traps a lot of highly capable people, honestly. When you have a curious mind, you can see a dozen fascinating paths forward at any given moment, and the modern impulse is to try and walk all of them simultaneously.
Yeah.
We use these very rigid, almost corporate-style frameworks to manage the load. But that pressure almost inevitably leads to a specific kind of cognitive overload. Your brain simply short-circuits. You aren't failing because you lack the desire. You're stalling because the architecture of your ambition has just become too heavy to lift on a daily basis.
And that heaviness is precisely why the material we are dissecting today feels like such a necessary palate cleanser. We're looking at a transcript from a YouTube channel called Speak English with Class.
Which is an interesting source for us.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the surface, this is an audio lesson designed for intermediate language learners. It's definitely not a Silicon Valley productivity manifesto.
No, not at all.
But that is exactly its hidden power. Because it's built for language learners. The speakers intentionally bypass all the exhausting jargon we usually associate with goal setting. They don't talk about key performance indicators.
Or synergistic flow states.
Right. None of that. Instead, they strip human motivation down to its absolute barest, most fundamental components. It operates as a psychological reset for those of us who have perhaps overcomplicated our own ambitions.
It's refreshing.
So the mission today is to extract this highly practical, surprisingly deep framework. We want to help you turn those biggest, most intimidating ambitions into manageable daily realities.
Taking a step back to those fundamentals is often the only way to break a cycle of paralysis. The framework we are exploring doesn't treat you like a machine to be optimized.
Yeah.
It treats you like a human being. A human who occasionally gets tired, gets distracted, and just needs a very clear, forgiving map to keep going.
Okay, let's unpack this. To build that map, the discussion starts by taking a rather humorous look in the rearview mirror, specifically at childhood dreams.
These anecdotes are great.
They really paint a picture. So one speaker recalls wanting to be a world-famous football player. In their head, the dream was totally cinematic. A massive stadium, blinding floodlights, tens of thousands of people chanting their name.
But the reality...
The physical reality at the time was just a muddy patch of grass at a small school with one single friend standing nearby yelling, "You missed again."
It's brutal. But the other speaker shares a completely parallel experience. Their grand vision was to be a pop star performing on a colossal stage. Pyrotechnics, a diamond-studded microphone, thousands of screaming fans.
Natural.
But the actual reality they were operating in was a childhood bedroom. They were singing into a hairbrush in front of a mirror. And the entire audience consisted of two rather unimpressed houseplants and one very confused-looking chair.
I mean, the plants in the chair probably offered a much less critical audience than the football friend. But these slightly dramatic, funny childhood memories aren't just there for nostalgia. They're used to pry apart two concepts that we, as highly functioning adults, still manage to conflate on a daily basis: the dream and the goal.
We do conflate them constantly. In this framework, the distinction is ruthlessly simple. A dream is defined purely as the big wish for the future. It's the what.
The what?
Right. It's the overarching vision of the life or the capability you desire. That might be navigating a foreign city, speaking the local language flawlessly, or successfully launching a boutique consulting firm, or even something as intangible as achieving a daily life with significantly less anxiety. That is the dream.
And the goal.
The goal operates on a completely different mechanical level. The goal is the small, unglamorous plan. It is the how.
I have to pause here because on the surface, that sounds like productivity 101.
Yeah.
If someone is listening to this, they already know what a goal is. They've written them down 100 times. Why is this specific distinction separating the big rut from the tiny, how still tripping up smart, driven people?
It comes down to how our brains process emotional rewards. Dreaming about the what feels fantastic. Visualizing the successful business or the fluent conversation releases a hit of dopamine. It feels like an accomplishment just to imagine it.
Sure.
But the how, the actual goal, contains friction. It involves sitting down at a desk when you are tired. So what highly driven people often do is they take that massive dopamine-heavy dream and they write it down on their daily to-do list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They treat the destination as the daily task. If your dream is to speak French fluently and you wake up thinking, I need to become fluent in French today, the gap between where you are and where you want to be is so large that the brain perceives it as a threat or an impossible burden, and you freeze.
That makes a lot of sense. You are basically demanding that your brain jump across the Grand Canyon every single Tuesday.
Precisely. The framework we are looking at resolves this by introducing a partnership model. Dreams and goals are a team that must travel together. The dream is the destination that gives you direction and confidence. But the goal is the tiny 5-minute localized action that actually turns the wheels of the vehicle.
You cannot have the vehicle without the destination, but the destination doesn't move the car.
Exactly.
So let's turn this directly over to you listening right now. Think about your current learning journey. What is your big wish right now? What is that massive what? Now strip away all the complexity. What is the tiny 5-minute how that pairs with it today?
Because the biggest dreams absolutely require the smallest goals to survive. To move this from theory into practice, the material grounds this partnership in a couple of highly specific real-world examples.
The first example really stuck with me. One of the individuals has a dream of opening a cozy English language studio. They have the entire aesthetic mapped out.
It's very vivid.
Yes. Mostly a physical room flooded with natural light. Plants everywhere. A massive wooden table for collaboration. Notebooks scattered around. The smell of really good coffee.
Sounds lovely.
It does. They envision it as this incredibly safe, welcoming home for learners to practice without fear. They even want to design a specialized curriculum specifically for shy speakers. Now, that is a multi-year, highly complex dream involving real estate, curriculum design, and business management.
Right. And if that individual simply sat in their current apartment visualizing the coffee and the sunlight, 10 years would pass, and it would remain nothing more than a very pleasant fantasy.
Exactly.
The cognitive load of build a school is paralyzing.
So their corresponding goal is remarkably constrained. They commit to working on their course idea for strictly 15 minutes a day. Just 15 minutes every weekday. During that tiny window, they might just draft one single example sentence, or rewrite a quiz question, or outline a 5-minute audio exercise. It is an almost aggressively small action. But they attach an incredibly poignant philosophy to this daily practice. They say, I'm coming slowly, but I'm coming.
I'm coming slowly, but I'm coming. That is a radical shift in how we usually measure progress. In a hyper-optimized culture, if you haven't secured the funding and signed the lease for the studio, you are failing.
Right.
But this framework argues that you are succeeding the moment you finish those 15 minutes. You are successfully executing the how, which means the what is inevitable, just delayed.
The second example they share is just as revealing, but it tackles a dream that is even less tangible. The dream here is to own a small house with a garden. They visualize a table outside, a few trees, flowers, maybe sitting out there recording audio with the sound of birds in the background.
It's about a feeling.
Yes. As they unpack it, you realize this isn't really a real estate dream. The house is a proxy for a slower life. It represents breathing fresh air, escaping traffic, and stepping away from the constant grinding noise of the city.
Currently, that person lives in a standard flat in the middle of a loud, busy, urban environment. The financial reality of buying a house with a garden is a long-term project. So the goal attached to this big dream is twofold.
Right.
First, they save a small, non-negotiable amount of money every single month. They don't view it as generic savings. They mentally reframe it as paying rent for a future house.
Which is smart, but I have to play devil's advocate on the second part of their goal. Because saving money makes logical sense. But they also set a goal to spend at least one afternoon a week sitting in a public park.
Yes.
If my ultimate dream is to own a private garden house, and I spend my Thursday afternoon sitting on a bench in a public park, isn't that just a distraction? I'm not building a house, I'm just sitting on grass.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it only sounds disconnected if you look at the physical goal. Psychologically, it is brilliant.
How so?
When you set a massive long-term goal, you are usually chasing a feeling. In this case, peace, slowness, and connection to nature. If you tell your brain that it is not allowed to experience those feelings until the mortgage is signed 10 years from now, your motivation will wither and die. You will burn out.
That makes sense.
Going to the park is a way of practicing the dream before it is fully real. You are extracting the core values of your future vision, the quiet, the fresh air, and injecting them into your current reality. You don't have to wait until you are 100% successful to experience your dream.
You are allowed to live a fraction of your end goal today.
Exactly. If your dream is to be a published author 5 years from now, you can go sit in a quiet cafe with a notebook for an hour this afternoon and embody the identity of a writer. It sustains the emotional energy required to keep saving the rent for the future house.
It's a powerful exercise to ask yourself, how can you actively participate in a tiny piece of your ultimate dream by the time you go to sleep tonight?
Definitely.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Because understanding the theory, pairing a big dream with a small 15-minute action is logically sound. But we don't live in a vacuum.
No, we don't.
We live in a world with Wi-Fi, endless obligations, financial stress, and our own wandering attention spans. The discussion highlights a painfully accurate trap that ambitious people fall into. We don't just want the garden house. We decide we want to learn conversational Italian, lose 15 pounds, maximize our retirement portfolio, backpack through Asia,
Read a book a week.
start a business, and somehow become an enlightened yoga practitioner by Friday.
We treat self-improvement like a buffet where we have to put everything on our plate at once. When we force that level of demand onto our daily routine, the brain evaluates the required energy expenditure, realizes it is mathematically impossible to maintain, and triggers an avoidance response. You look at your list of 10 life-changing goals, you feel a wave of intense anxiety, and you end up lying on the couch scrolling through short-form videos for 2 hours.
To bypass that avoidance response, the framework introduces what they call the season strategy. Instead of trying to be the yoga master, the linguist, and the entrepreneur all at once, you choose exactly one main dream for your current season of life.
Just one.
And a season here is defined as a manageable chunk of time, roughly the next 3 to 6 months. You elevate one dream to be the absolute priority.
Which naturally creates a sense of panic for the ambitious learner.
Oh, absolutely. If I put my other dreams away for 6 months, it feels like I'm giving up on them. Aren't I just procrastinating on the Italian and the side hustle?
Yeah.
How do I prevent those other dreams from just fading into oblivion?
It is a matter of cognitive framing. You aren't killing those other dreams, and you aren't abandoning them. The material uses a very helpful analogy. Imagine you are driving a car. Your primary dream for this season is the driver.
Okay.
It has its hands on the wheel, navigating the traffic, making the active decisions. All of your other dreams are still in the car with you. They are just sitting in the back seat, relaxing. They are safe. They are traveling with you, but they do not get to touch the steering wheel right now.
Taking the pressure off those secondary goals frees up a massive amount of cognitive bandwidth. Once you have that single driver, you have to attach it to your actual daily routine. This is where the concept of the daily anchor comes into play.
Crucial step.
A 15-minute goal floating around in your day is vulnerable. You have to tie it to a highly specific, immovable event. It can't just be, I will study my course material for 15 minutes today. It has to be, I will study for 15 minutes exactly after I finish my morning coffee. They issue a very stark warning about vague scheduling. Sometimes usually means never.
Sometime is the enemy of momentum. If you don't tether the action to an existing habit, like your commute, your lunch break, or right after dinner, the chaos of the day will swallow it whole. And the primary agents of that chaos are what they refer to as dream thieves.
Dream thieves. It sounds dramatic, but it is incredibly accurate.
Very accurate.
These are the push notifications lighting up your screen, the inbox that constantly needs clearing, the illusion that you can multitask effectively. And they specifically call out the gravitational pull of that very comfortable sofa in your living room, the one with a strong personality that seems to whisper your name the moment you try to do something difficult.
The sofa is the ultimate dream thief because it offers immediate emotional regulation with zero cognitive friction. It demands nothing of you.
Nothing at all.
Trying to execute your 15-minute goal while sitting on that sofa with your phone buzzing next to you is setting yourself up for failure. Environmental design is critical here. The defense against dream thieves is establishing a dedicated, focus corner.
You don't need a hermetically sealed soundproof office. You just need a short, protected pocket of reality. It might just be moving to a different chair at the kitchen table, or putting on a specific pair of noise-canceling headphones, or turning your phone entirely off and putting it in a drawer in the next room.
Okay.
Changing your physical environment, even slightly, sends a biological signal to your brain that the context has shifted. It says, we are no longer in consumption mode, we are in creation mode.
You are constructing a microenvironment where your primary dream is the only thing that exists for those 10 to 15 minutes. It shields your fragile daily habit from the crossfire of your normal life.
So let's assume you've done the work. You have your single dream driving the car, you've anchored your 15-minute goal to your morning coffee, and you've banished the dream thieves from your focus corner. The mechanics are in place.
The easy part is done.
Right. Because the framework doesn't ignore the emotional toll of ambition. There are significant psychological hurdles to navigate, particularly when other people get involved. What happens when you finally voice this big dream out loud? You tell a friend you're starting a business or you're learning a language to move abroad, and their reaction is to roll their eyes or chuckle or tell you to be realistic.
That kind of external friction can derail months of progress if you don't understand the psychology behind it. When someone dismisses your ambition, it feels like a critique of your capability. But the material makes a profound observation. Other people's doubts are almost entirely about their own internal fears, not your external limits.
They use a fantastic mountain analogy to illustrate this dynamic. Imagine you have decided to climb a challenging, somewhat intimidating mountain. You look around at your peer group, and they're all sitting comfortably on the sofa at base camp, yelling at you, "Don't go up there, it's raining, it's dangerous, you might fall."
Yeah.
But you aren't asking them to carry your backpack. You aren't asking them to climb it with you. You just want them to say, "Good luck." Why are they so invested in keeping you on the sofa?
Because your decision to climb forces them to confront the fact that they are choosing not to. Your ambition highlights their stagnation. It makes them uncomfortable about their own unfulfilled potential.
Wow.
If they can convince you to stay on the sofa, their choice to remain comfortable feels validated. The advice here is a form of emotional self-defense. You do not owe everyone access to your dreams. You should treat your ambition like a small, fragile light. You cup your hands around it to protect it from the wind. When someone casts doubt, you don't need to argue with them. You simply hold that protective stance and tell yourself internally, "You don't see it yet, but I see it."
You don't see it yet, but I see it. That is an incredibly potent mental shield against external noise. But the most dangerous dream thief doesn't live outside of you. It lives in your own head.
That's the real challenge.
What happens when the doubter is your own internal monologue? We all have those days where the energy is gone, the progress feels invisible, and your brain is screaming that you were too old, you started too late, and you simply don't have what it takes. On a Tuesday evening, when you are exhausted and every fiber of your being just wants snacks and drama, how do you overcome that internal resistance?
That is the crux of the entire endeavor. How you handle the bad days dictates your long-term trajectory. To address this, the framework redefines a very familiar word: loyalty.
Loyalty.
We typically reserve loyalty for relationships, companies, or sports teams, but they argue for the necessity of loyalty to your own dream. Loyalty isn't defined by how intensely you work when you feel inspired. Loyalty is defined by your willingness to stay present when the process is incredibly uncomfortable.
Which means, on that terrible Tuesday, loyalty doesn't mean forcing yourself to execute a flawless, high-intensity 2-hour work session.
Doing so would likely just deepen your burnout. When the internal resistance is that high, you have to shrink the timeline. You don't ask yourself, "Am I capable of doing this for the next 5 years?" That question will crush you. You ask, "What am I capable of doing for the next 5 minutes?"
Just 5 minutes.
Loyalty on a bad day simply means giving your dream 5 honest minutes.
I can hear the skeptics, though. Is 5 minutes actually going to move the needle on building a business or mastering a language? Or is that just a psychological trick to make us feel better about having a bad day?
It is about identity maintenance, not output. Biologically, habits die when the chain of behavior is broken repeatedly. By putting in 5 minutes, reading 1 page, reviewing 3 vocabulary words, outlining 1 email, you aren't transforming your project, but you are preserving your identity as someone who shows up. The framework distills this into a binary daily question. Am I for my dream or against my dream today? Being for it doesn't require perfection, it just requires a token of participation. Being against it means turning your back and saying, I'll deal with this tomorrow.
As long as you were putting your chip on the table, you were still in the game. And that perspective shifts us into what might be the most enduring insight from this entire discussion. We are conditioned to view our big ambitions as heavy burdens. We treat them as strict, terrifying deadlines. If I don't achieve X by the time I'm 35 or 40 or 50, I have failed.
And that framing turns the dream into a source of chronic anxiety rather than a source of inspiration. The material offers a complete paradigm shift. A dream is not a deadline. A dream is a direction. It operates as a compass.
A compass. It doesn't scream at you if you step off the path. It doesn't judge your speed. It just quietly, persistently points true north.
It provides orientation when the environment gets confusing. Your dream is there to pull you forward through the difficult siphons of your life, serving as a reminder that your current struggles are not the final chapter of your story. When the pressure becomes overwhelming, you are allowed to decelerate.
You don't have to reach the summit this year.
Exactly. You simply have to ensure that when you take a step, it is in the general direction of that compass needle.
Which means that sometimes the most productive thing you can do is simply sit down by the side of the trail and rest. If the dream is a direction and not a deadline, then pausing to catch your breath isn't a failure or an abandonment. It is just a necessary pause on a very long hike.
Rest is a strategic requirement for endurance. The only metric that matters is that while you are resting, your face is still turned toward the horizon you are trying to reach.
So what does this all mean? Let's pull all of these threads together into something you can carry with you today. First, stop conflating the destination with the daily map. Untangle your massive what from your tiny 15-minute how.
Separate them completely.
Second, relieve your cognitive load by utilizing the season strategy. Let one primary dream drive the car and give your other ambitions permission to relax in the back seat for the next few months. Third, anchor your daily effort to an unbreakable routine and physically protect it from dream thieves by stepping into a dedicated focus corner.
Protect that time.
Shield your ambition from the projected fears of others and prove your loyalty to yourself by putting in 5 honest minutes, especially on the days your brain is begging you to quit. And above all, utilize your dream as a compass for direction rather than a punishing deadline. Progress isn't about perfection. It's just about coming back again and again.
The overarching theme here invites a profound reassessment of why we set these goals in the first place. If a dream is simply a compass providing direction across the span of your life, rather than a finish line we are obligated to cross, then it changes the nature of success entirely.
It really does.
It makes you wonder if the ultimate value of having a massive, intimidating dream isn't about acquiring the studio or the garden house or the language fluency at all. Perhaps the true hidden value lies entirely in the caliber of person you are forced to become, the fierce focus you must cultivate, the quiet loyalty you must practice, and the deep resilience you must build, simply by choosing to walk toward that horizon, step by tiny step, every single day.